Dead by Daylight. Often nicknamed the Smash Bros of horror, this 4v1 survival horror game has incorporated a significant amount of iconic pieces from all corners of horror media, extending from the modern classic Stranger Things, to the instantly recognizable Hellraiser, even the all-time classics like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Dead by Daylight is nothing short of a horror museum and a must-need for gamers and horror fans alike. Behaviour Interactive has also proven capable of creating their own characters and universes, which have even appeared in other video game licenses. This video will cover how Dead by Daylight has revived otherwise stale horror licenses to appeal to a modern audience and to bring a new life to all these iconic characters. Starting off with arguably the most shocking and significant one, the Silent Hill chapter. But why was it that this collab was so shocking to the gaming community? Silent Hill is the beloved video game franchise, dating all the way back to 1999. Over the course of multiple video game sequels, spin-offs, and even 2 full-length films, with some favourable and not so favourable reviews, it's safe to say that Silent Hill has grown an incredibly large and dedicated fanbase. In August of 2014, Konami would release its last Silent Hill project, titled PT. This was a teaser supposedly for an upcoming Silent Hill installment, named Silent Hills. However, less than a year later, the plug was pulled on the project. Konami had cancelled development of this game, which would leave many fans devastated and in the dark, eagerly awaiting any sort of Silent Hill related news. Many felt that Konami had abandoned the Silent Hill franchise, and they were right to think this. For the next 5 years, no more news for any Silent Hill media was announced. Fans were left with only the original games, the last proper installment being 2012. Many die-hard fans were only clinging on to supposed leaks. These leaks came one after the other, all that would only later be proven fake. This was until May 27th, 2020, where the official collaboration was announced with Behaviour and Konami. This news was massive amongst all Silent Hill fans, old and new. With the property being stale for so long, many were amazed to see it find its way into such a relevant and high-traffic game. Although this was only a DLC, this collaboration showed fans that the Silent Hill license was indeed still active, and it showed Konami that the Silent Hill fans were back, and stronger than ever. This collab reignited even the oldest of Silent Hill fans. Many players now speculate that much more Silent Hill content is on the way because of this collaboration. The Silent Hill Dead by Daylight content didn't stop there, however. Many more beloved Silent Hill characters were gradually introduced, such as James Sunderland, Sybil Bennett, and Lisa Garland, as well as many other cosmetics. This further showed that the DLC was not a one-time thing. It was safe to say that after all this, Silent Hill was well and truly back into the horror gaming franchise. And that is how Dead by Daylight revived the Silent Hill franchise. Up next is the Hellraiser chapter. Hellraiser is a widely recognizable horror movie franchise. This series started back in 1987. The first Hellraiser movie was released, and it was a massive success. It was popular for its incredibly odd characters and a confusing but well interesting storyline. Its massive success would go on to spawn 9 sequel installments. The first 3 movies, especially the first one, were met with relatively good commercial success and grew a large fanbase following. However, after this trilogy, the many following sequels would struggle to find commercial success, losing original directors, cast members, and general focus of the direction of the Hellraiser franchise. Even with movies like Hellraiser Judgment dating as soon as 2018, the franchise would still struggle to find a younger audience of this generation, and it failed to put Hellraiser on the radar for many new-time horror and sci-fi enjoyers. This wasn't to say that Hellraiser still had its people that would stick by it no matter what. On September 8th, 2021, Pinhead and some of his other Cenobite partners would step into the realm of Dead by Daylight. This was quite unexpected for a number of reasons. Pinhead is not your typical slasher villain. Pinhead is an entity that uses chains and interdimensional travel to torment and punish his victims. A description like this makes it seem like a Hellraiser chapter in Dead by Daylight wouldn't work. However, it was quite the opposite. Behaviour was commemorated on their accomplishment of successfully and faithfully adapting Pinhead into their 4v1 horror survival. Hellraiser had also never gained a video game adaptation, not even in its 34 years, until now. Doug Bradley, the original actor for Pinhead, even reprised his role as the Hell Demon, which he hadn't done since 2005. The Dead by Daylight Hellraiser chapter made an entire new audience aware and involved with the franchise that would otherwise have nothing to do with it. The Hellraiser franchise seems to be only going up from here, with a promising new installment on the way featuring a female lead villain, which horror media generally lacks. And that is how Dead by Daylight revived Hellraiser and brought a new audience to the franchise. Next is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Many would argue that Dead by Daylight is the main reason for this company's involvement in the video game franchise, and I'll explain why. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a long-running horror franchise. It's also a long name, and why I'll just be calling it the Texas Chainsaw. It all started in 1974, when the first Texas Chainsaw was released. The film was instantly met with overwhelming success, and is still to this day considered to be a masterpiece in horror. The reason for this success was due to its smart script and unique cinematography work, which no other film has quite mastered. It's also known for its flat-out disturbing and unfiltered story, which made it a violent yet intriguing watch. The profits and commercial success would cause a spawn of 2 direct sequels, as well as 7 remakes, reboots, and spin-offs. However, none of these movies would quite recreate the same commercial and fan-received success as the original one did. The second movie was the closest they get to getting the same reception. On September 15th, 2017, the iconic Leatherface was announced to step foot in Dead by Daylight. The last proper Texas Chainsaw video game adaptation was all the way back in March 1983. This was a single-player action game released on the Atari 2600, so it's safe to say this franchise was in need of a video game refresher. It's also worth mentioning that Leatherface made a small appearance in Mortal Kombat. However, this was only really seen as a little cameo and wasn't as impactful as the Dead by Daylight collaboration. Leatherface was met with positive feedback in the Dead by Daylight community, as well as old-time Texas Chainsaw enjoyers. Bubba Sawyer has found a dedicated player fanbase inside of Dead by Daylight. This collaboration also opened up the possibility for a modern video game adaptation of the Texas Chainsaw. It also brought this old-time classic property to a whole new audience, that being the video game community. Texas Chainsaw has also made attempts at connecting with its modern audience as well. This was clearly shown in the 2022 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. However, this movie was met with harsh critiques and not much love from the original fanbase. However, Texas Chainsaw now has a full video game adaptation of the original 1974 film on the way. It's safe to say that Dead by Daylight may have been partially responsible for this game's development. Rumors have been circulating that behaviors assets of the Leatherface's model was used for this game. This project has not been released yet, however it's already been met with positive reception from both the gaming community and the franchise's fanbase. And that is how Dead by Daylight brought a second win for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, introducing it to a larger and different audience. Next is the Sadako Rising chapter. I'll just make it clear that Behavior actually acquired the license for the books of Ringu. However, the in-game visuals and mechanics are extremely similar to the movie, so I think it's safe to base it off them. The Ringu series technically has 4 installments, the original, Ring 2, and Ring 0, and this one, which is technically the second one also. The first movie of this franchise was nothing short of an absolute classic for horror. Sadako is one of the most instantly recognizable faces in horror. However, the sequels that would follow this movie would go completely off the horror radar, with nowhere near the original success and attention as the first one. Ever since 2000, the Ringu franchise seems to have gone quiet. In this year, they released a video game adaptation and the final film we would see in the Ringu series. However, over 20 years later, Behavior would acquire this license and bring it into their realm of horror. The biggest thing about this crossover is the fact that Behavior was given the okay to transform one of the characters to be much older than we see him in the movies. They were also allowed to expand on the lore of both characters they introduced. This was both quite a big news for the Ring fans and a big step for Behavior, as they now have proven capable of continuing on the legacy of Ringu in their game, opening up the opportunities for other licenses to do the same thing. This chapter was also met with pretty good success with the Dead by Daylight community as well, with its great visuals and unique gameplay aspects. And that is how Dead by Daylight revived the Ringu series. There's also a few other licenses that haven't had as big as an impact as these ones, but are still worth mentioning. Ash vs Evil Dead. This franchise has proven capable of keeping up with the modern day, with all its movies and shows receiving great critical success. That's right, even the reboot. Evil Dead has also gotten a critically acclaimed game now, proving very well that the franchise is still alive. The collaboration, I believe, only boosted the success and attention of the Evil Dead video game. Stranger Things. This one was mainly impactful for Dead by Daylight. It brought a massive influx of players to the game whilst also providing a needed video game adaptation of Stranger Things. The license has since left, but it's heavily rumoured to be coming back this Christmas, which is great. Halloween. Whilst Michael Myers and Laurie Strode have had requested video game adaptations, the Halloween franchise has also proven capable of keeping up with its modern audience. The recently released movies have been received greatly by the community, with a final installment on the way in less than a month, which has been incredibly hyped. Halloween was also massive for Dead by Daylight as it was the first license for the game, and it opened up the door for all other crossovers we know now. Resident Evil. This one was just equally good for both parties. Resident Evil got more attention from Dead by Daylight, and Dead by Daylight got more attention from Resident Evil. It was just a win-win for this one. It was also awesome to see Albert Wesker make a return, giving his new voice actor a place to shine. Ghostface. This one isn't a Scream movie license, so it was just good for Dead by Daylight to include a more iconic face in their game, whilst also creating a new character behind the mask. Saw. Saw definitely needed a video game adaptation. Its old games were very outdated. Dead by Daylight provided a faithful and newly rendered adaptation for the franchise. It also brought light to two characters that weren't in the main spotlight for much of the Saw movies, which is nice. A Nightmare on Elm Street. This one was an adaptation of the 2010 remake, which many fans weren't exactly happy about. This, however, brought a version of the film that fans could actually enjoy, as the movie received pretty bad reception from basically everywhere. It also brought an iconic name to Dead by Daylight, which was pretty significant for behaviour. Left 4 Dead. This collaboration provided a home for a beloved character in the series who died in the games, which fans were pretty happy about. Not much else to say about this one, it was just good for both parties. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm excited to see what's next for Dead by Daylight. Thanks for watching, and have a great one.